Government would like to set the record straight on the arrest of Chin'ono and Govt Ngarivhume and their subsequent appearance in court. We have noted with dismay a well-coordinated local and international misinformation and disinformation media campaign where the duo are said to have been arrested for supposedly exposing alleged corruption cases in government. For the avoidance of doubt, Chin'ono was not abducted. He was lawfully arrested by the Zimbabwe Republic Police, and he was not arrested for exposing corruption. He was arrested for using his social media accounts to incite Zimbabweans to violently overthrow the government. Even though Chin'ono writes about corruption, he is not unique in this regard. All the newspapers in Zimbabwe, including independent publications, have written extensively about corruption in government and private sector. None of the journalists who have written about the subject of corruption have been arrested for publishing the same. This is because the government and the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe acknowledge and appreciates the role the media plays in the investigation and exposition of corruption. The Standard and the Zimbabwe Independent papers, together with the state media, reported on the NASA scandal that resulted in the arrest of former Minister Priska Mpumira. None of the journalists from these newspapers were arrested or censored for reporting in this case. In addition, the President appointed Mr. Trevor Nyube, the proprietor of Alpha Media Holdings, AMH, which is the biggest independent newspaper stable in Zimbabwe, to his Presidential Advisory Council, PAC. Such claims are deliberately being calculated to mislead and manufacture a false narrative which brings into question His Excellency President E.D. Mnangagwa's sincerity in fighting corruption both in government and private sector. Since coming into office as leader of the new dispensation, His Excellency President Mnangagwa has provided a favorable working environment for media practitioners to conduct their business unfettered. The Zimbabwe Independent from AMH publishes articles accusing government officials of corruption on a weekly basis without fail. But this has not attracted any arrest of the journalists concerned. The Second Republic, through Parliament, has repealed IPA, which in the past was used against journalists, and replaced it with a raft of legislation aimed at protecting the rights of journalists to practice their profession freely and the rights of citizens to information concerning the areas of interest and concern. President Mnangagwa ordered an investigation into the drugs affair before Chin'ono started tweeting about it. As a result of these investigations, several arrests have been made. The most prominent of those arrests was that of the former Minister of Health and Child Care, Dr. Obadiah Moyo, who was charged and relieved of his duties as Minister of Health and Child Care. It is therefore false to state that no action has been taken against the corrupt individuals fingered by Hopo's expose. The President has consistently shown his unflinching commitment to fighting corruption by setting up a robust legal infrastructure to fight this economic scourge. He has also spearheaded the funding of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, ZAC, as a way of capacitating it to deliver on its constitutional mandate. This has seen an unprecedented arresting and summary dismissals of those two cabinet ministers in a short space of time. The conviction and jailing of high-profile individuals such as former Minister Samuel Undenge, Douglas Tafumanei, and Simon Taranike, and many more, is also indicative of the zero tolerance to corruption policy. The arrest of these two, that's Chin'ono and Ngarivhume individuals, clearly has nothing to do with their anti-corruption stance, which finds convergence with President E.D. Mnangagwa's own position, but their ploy to violently destabilize the country and unconstitutionally seize power by any means necessary, thus putting Zimbabwean lives and property at risk. The role of foreign powers in this plot to instigate an illegal regime change in Zimbabwe is made apparent by a set of events and statements that followed the police operation. Within minutes of arrival of the police at Mr. Chin'ono's home, the U.S. Embassy was already all over this issue, which is between a sovereign country and its citizens by tweeting and trying to bring pressure to bear on the Zimbabwean government so it would not enforce the law of the land. Its particular interest in this one person is curious in the list. Other Western embassies, who usually take the USA's lead, joined in this irregular interference by tweeting and releasing statements which were calculated to obstruct the course of justice in a hosting country. Even after Zimbabwe's independent judiciary had issued its verdict on the duo's bail application, a senior member of the US administration issued a very derogatory and undiplomatic statement against the government of Zimbabwe, showing condescending disrespect to a sovereign country. Zimbabwe is keen to engage with all members of the community of nations, but will not surrender its sovereignty as a trade-off for this. All what Zimbabwe seeks is mutual respect and non-interference in its internal affairs. Going forward, government will not compromise on Zimbabwe's national security and expects all foreign embassies hosted here to behave with propriety as set out in the Vienna Convention. All the aforesaid is happening in the context of Zimbabwe's fight against COVID-19 pandemic. At this moment, Zimbabwe, like the whole world, faces the threat of the pandemic. The Zimbabwe government has done reasonably and surprisingly well today, up to date. Indeed, it has confounded detractors and doom-mongers. Hopewell and Ngarivhume belong to that camp of evil wishers. The begging question again, and I say, why call for a violent uprising in the midst of a raging and ravaging COVID-19? The ongoing USA elections are a big Republican Party in Jacksonville. They've stopped the big Republican Party in Jacksonville. Why can't the detractors and doom-mongers equally copy this act if they have cancelled their meeting because of COVID-19? We would like this act to be also replicated. Western embassies should provide counsel to the regime change charges that this is not the hour to play dice with the lives of Zimbabweans. This is the season of Black Lives Matter. After the choking to death of George Floyd by a cruel white police officer in Minneapolis in USA, we have traveled and suffered from their past depredations. It's not democracy they want. After all, we paid a heavy price to attain it from the conquering colonials. They did not give up Zimbabwe on a platter. It's cruel self-enrichment from our resources that they seek. Please, why can't you give Africa a break? As Zimbabwe, we are saying we can't breathe. Their actions are premised on the fear that President Mnangagwa and his deep-seamed economic and financial reforms have taken root, that they are beginning to pay off in reviving the economy and rekindling hope. Blood-sucking money launderers and other dirty players in our fiscal and financial players are being squeezed by the succeeding weekly auction of foreign exchange. The mobile money platforms are being husbanded into the central bank RBZ. The all-important energy sector is now full of promise from huge investments in Matabeleland North, as can be seen from the recent visit by President E.D. Mnangagwa to that region. The mortal fear of Africa by the West is the economic success of self-sustainable African nations. Zimbabwe now offers that prospect after braving through devastating sanctions by the West for 2 decades. No wonder the pandemic being engendered by the fear of a good example, a threat of a good example. President Mnangagwa and his government are fully appraised on this evil agenda and devilish machinations, who keep the course of free engagement while safeguarding the nation from a slide to chaos. I thank you sincerely.